Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. Today we are going to be geeking out over Viridian Gate Online Crimson Alliance Book 2 by James Hunter. Also uses the A in the middle, or J.A. Hunter, or James Hunter. Yeah, anyway, thoroughly enjoy the series. And spoilers ahead. Slightly mature concepts, but not really. It's more talking about poop. But yeah.
It's realistic, end of the world, but not over the top on the graphic side of things, right?
Or yeah, I guess I was talking about us, but
Oh, us too? Yeah, fair enough. um, yeah, one of the things I guess not all authors figure out is what their pen name is going to be. Because I remember us kind of debating, like, is it the same James Hunter? Two
yeah,
pretty common
because
names. Maybe they're different authors trying to distinguish themselves, but he's another powerhouse. We've found a handful of good authors these last couple of years that just can publish the content really, really quickly. I remember we shared an interview where, when watching it, we learned twisty words, things, and stuff that he think did 23 books in 4 years full time, one additional year part time. So, yeah, so much more Viridian Gate to go, only on book two.
yep, as well as I haven't checked, but last time I checked, it was 1, 2, and 3 were still included in your Audible subscription, so you can pick them up for free, check them out.
Yep. Yep.
Now the trap is we're at 7 in the series, so gonna have to buy a couple to keep up. But I thoroughly enjoyed the series. Glad I was able to get the first 3 marathon
Yes.
modem without even having
Yes.
to think of investment. But now that I'm hooked, I definitely will be investing in these further.
He's doing it right. Give everybody just enough of a sampler to want to know what happens next. And I'll gladly pay for the next 4 books, plus the side quests and all that good stuff. Like, I now understand why this checks so many of your boxes for a series, because it's lit RPG. You have the additional collaborations in the universe. You have like new books coming out every couple months in the series to keep it going on. Just jumping into it, book two, we kind of get to see Abby missing during part of the beginning, and it kind of makes you wonder. And she's the main character of the side series Firebrand, right?
Yep.
So no spoilers for that, but have you listened to that one yet? Or
Or that's only one of his side quests, which also was included that I found. And yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out his read order. So I technically went out of order, but I enjoy the concept of, much like in real life, everybody is the main hero,
of
or
course.
everybody is the hero of their own story. So from the little bit I've done of the main one, as well as the Firebrand side one, it seems like, yeah, it's separate because it's more information that we didn't have, but then it's
Mhm.
also, from what I had, intertwined where it's pretty verbatim for overlapping conflict.
So, kind of going down a different rabbit hole here, but would you prefer authors kind of focus on point of view characters and their own separate storyline, or have it blended together like an epic fantasy? Because there were times where I'm thinking of,
So,
go ahead.
so for example, book 1 of this, we know of Abby. We know she got us our capsule so that we didn't blow up or die in a fire apocalypse. And then
Giant
we end up
asteroid.
getting a message from her saying, hey, there's some real stuff going on. We learn more about it. We do our dungeon dive, and then she's off doing her own thing. So we get knowledge of her as well as a little bit of interaction, and then kind of same thing for book two here. We know we're waiting for her. We ended up finding other information due to picking up our class kit, and then we get to see her briefly, kind of in and out. She pops up and does her management shtick. Meanwhile, we're off gallivanting, doing other things, so we get
Grinding
interaction.
ore.
But
No, that was
I
before, but yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed the Firebrand series because it was a lot more in depth what was really happening on the you know in the being a coder for the game, as well as it connected a lot of the dots where it's just kind of hinted at, which
Mm-hmm.
is good for giving us relevant information and continuing the story without bogging us down. Um,
Took the
and
words right out
so
my mouth.
it's a trick question because yes to all of it, but you
Just
have
more.
yeah, just
More.
more, but pick one and do that
To
because several authors do things successfully in different ways. And that's where everybody being the main hero of their story makes it so that you can tell it from different points of view. But this series is very, hey, I'm the main character.
you follow their point of view, right, for the whole story. So Abby comes in and out when we're through Grimjack's lens. I get to see it there, but I haven't listened to Firebrand yet. Um, but yeah, I'm curious about the lore and the backstory and everything there. Um, hey, good to see White Thatch. I'd like to see like 3 main stories with side quests that link them in time. I could follow that. It gets hard when there's too many point of view characters. Um, but if I had to pick up the two, answering my own question that I threw at Pete with follow just one point of view or have them all blended together, I think White Thatch is on point. Wheel of Time did something very similar where there was like 3 main characters, though he also had a lot of additional point of view characters, and that could be a bit much, but I was getting about
Or the
30
one
hours of audiobook compared to 10 hours of audiobook for one point of view character. So go ahead, Pete.
the only one who really has done it like superbly well with multiple main characters and killing them off. I didn't say that. It was the second book of Hyperion.
Oh, they did that really well. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so back to Viridian Gate Online, Book 2,
So much
Crimson
happens
Alliance.
in this book. Like when I was going back and re-listening to it today, it seems like it goes really fast, but it's just one giant climax of another climax slash let's work in our tropes as we go, more giant spiders. Um,
Yeah. So that is an element that I hope to see more of at the end of
giant
book
spiders.
one. Follow me.
Okay.
Come along.
All
At
right.
the end of book one, there was the meeting with Sophia, and she explained all the different overminds and how some are happy staying in their lane, doing their own thing. One of them that she mentions is the one that deals with the beastkin, and yeah, that was a big twist that I thoroughly enjoyed as to how we got them on our side, and now we're doing the Spider Rider bit, and
Yes.
so I'm interested to see the overmind of that one,
Yeah.
as well as, let's be honest, like some of the races or classes he was looking at the beginning, I guess they are humanoid, but our Spider Queen, when she's flexing on us, she's in her humanoid form.
Right.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm excited to see the additional overminds and gods bit from there.
I'm I'm hoping it builds that way because we're slowly scaling in, right? First
Hmm.
book was very much about Grimjack's experience, how everyone kind of gets introduced to the world, has their NPC, and then like 3 chapters, 4 chapters in, we started a faction, one of 32, 36. Um, and like, what, bam, all of a sudden, old guildmates are coming in. We get to see the lore and kind of the world building on how that works with, whole families coming in, partial families, people. There was a 14-year-old, I think, same class as Grimjack. That was the only one able to get into a pod. And
And so
like,
I guess
we
this
know
is
the AI gods are pulling strings in the back, right?
yeah.
Go ahead.
So love to hate relationship with this. Grim Jack is kind of a jack of all traits, which I can forgive because he is named Jack. And
Uh,
then same thing with the world as a whole. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm thoroughly enjoying it, but we get like little bit of snippets of combat. We get a little bit of civilization building,
we get a
and
lot of
then
combat when I
a
was going
lot.
back through this.
Well, and then we have the whole like faction thing, and it's different because it's geographical. It's
Hmm.
not, hey, this is our place. You can't take it. You can, raid it, but we're just going to respawn and pop back up. It's more, yeah, resource intensive. And I could have sworn we were going to go down a different route at the beginning after doing our logging and then going on our mining expedition and then needing to do all this stuff. But oh man, I'm slacking. I didn't pull the quote, and I'm gonna butcher it. Sorry, not sorry. So when the I can't even think of the guy's name.
Which one?
Oh, the guy we get our skill kit from.
The guy we get our skill kit from.
Daughter wears a mask.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah,
so the chieftain is talking to Grim Jack and is pretty much like, "Hey, I need you to go do this." And Grimjack more or less is like, "What? Really? You had me go take on this unbelievable boss as my first quest, and now you want to go do an ore grind? Like, what is
right.
this?" And then that's a part I'm talking
Gamers
about.
getting a
After
chuckle.
that, he pretty much lays it down like, as a leader, you need to know how to delegate. And then he's like, okay, I guess that is more important. And he stops him and he's like, no, that's not more important. Everything is important, needs to happen just so. And yeah, gotta love the lot of good leadership advice.
Yeah.
And then we
The
get,
name is Amara. Uh,
or that's
the
a daughter.
chieftain's daughter. Isn't that who you were asking about?
No, the chieftain.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Continue. Though I have some counterpoints.
Yeah, and then we got another good one when Grimjack's like, "Wait a minute, how are you getting everybody over here?" He's talking to Abby at this point. "How are you getting everybody over here? How are you vetting them and, all this?" And she's pretty much like, "Oh yeah, I did management and, I did design, blah blah blah. It's all about getting good people, giving them, concrete direction and then getting out of their way." And yeah, there are a lot more people in my life that need to understand this concept,
Yes.
and it is hard to
Yes.
execute well.
Not micromanaging, but finding quality people. And yeah,
Giving them enough of a direction.
We talk about this all the time, and one of the many reasons why we keep coming back to these books, and perhaps we're just trying to feel good about reading all this epic portal fantasy video game stuff since we don't have time to play games, but just the lessons that come through. I can think back to like a previous life when I was in management and had just got promoted up, and it was one of the hardest lessons for me. Like, work smart, not hard. Like, find somebody to do the role and then get out of the way. Keep the eye on the big picture. And we kind of get to see that with Grim Jack and how lucky he is to have all the tactical and logistical support to help him manage these things, and he can just focus on like the higher goal and values. But yeah, he goes from just a scare guy, end of the world coming, with his sarcastic, witty rogue sidekick, to faction leader, to, gosh, like, we scale all the way up to a freaking huge battle for a fort, right?
Yeah, pretty much. In between there, we pick up our Void Drake. We, recruit the Spider Queen.
Oh man, there were so many like first, like epic moment after epic moment.
Gentleman Georgie, and we recruit the Russian. So, sidestep real quick. If you're not listening to this in audio format, we cannot be friends. But this
That's not
author,
true.
or
We
this
can still be
narrator,
friends.
we can still be friends, does a very good accent for Cutter, and I thoroughly appreciate it. Because, like, Grim Jack is more like, I guess, North American or England or whatever. It's pretty common for what I hear, but then the accent off of Cutter, like,
Somewhat British,
it's done
very,
pretty well.
very,
I
yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
You can hear the sarcasm and snark come through it too when he gives a Grimjack witty bit.
Yeah,
Yes, good
the
call, White
Russian
Thatch.
alchemist.
He's a lot of fun, and the voice acting for that too.
Yeah, that was pretty well. He didn't have as much, so but
Yeah.
My big thing was the quote. This guy definitely understands. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
When the Russian alchemist was going and looting everything and
Yeah, picking up all
realizing
the loot.
his faux pas, and Grimjack's just like, meh, go for it. Besides, the AI gods are telling me I need you, so a little goodwill won't hurt.
And so one thing we often talk about, and we haven't talked about a lot recently, time dilation. So Grimjack has his ability, and I'm sorry, but I can't remember the name, but essentially goes into the Shadowverse, and time stops for everybody. We get to see it hard countered at the end, but then we have these mines where, with the Shadowverse power, it gets accumulated or absorbed and then kind of given to the whole party, or it's like a portal thing. Anyway, what I'm getting to is time dilation and how it saves our bacon. And a lot of potential. Is definitely Goku's hyperbolic time chamber.
It's always interesting to see how authors deal with different components of the game. But Grimjack is a lot of fun, and his class is a lot of fun.
He is a
and
little
definitely
bit of
broke the mold.
everything.
Yeah, which it's a love-hate bit, right? Like,
I thoroughly appreciate it, and also like the feels as we're going through it. For example, when we're going up against Georgie and we're barely hanging on, Cutter's on his last leg, Alchemist finally picked up his supplies, and now there's this demonic Yeti, and he's just like clearly like, nope, we're done, it can't be done. And then he's like, but wait, there's more. And so I appreciate going through the process with the character and figuring it out and it not just being like, oh yeah, I got this cool epic ability, as well as like he plays kind of a funky role where he is a stealthy, heavy hitting, magic augmented, yeah, tank ish thing. So
I was trying to figure that out, and I want to come back to that. But White Thatch, in reference to the time
time
dilation,
dilation.
yeah. So does that mean he can process all that time faster? And I was kind of thinking through the
I thought
same
it was like
question.
instanced. Or
Uh,
yeah, because with everybody else being conscious.
but think about it. Like, granted, they're digital right now. But in the development before that, how would it work even if they were instance with real people and he used that ability? Would the instance then
The
is he speed up? Do they
only
slow down?
comparison I have is when they die and he literally loses time. You know, he wasn't conscious for those 8 hours that he was dead. I guess he does do a bit of the dreaming and the horror and all of that, but if they can literally shut you off until you respawn, which is 8 hours later, I figure it's some manipulation that way. I don't know, because I guess there's a lot involved and everything else going on.
Yeah, like pause the whole, like White Thatch
Yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah. The
can't
whole
pause the whole game for one ability. But I could see it if it was like slowed where he got sped up and processed it. And again, like I could see it being instanced if they were just all NPCs, quote unquote. But it kind of
yeah,
makes you
yeah. I
wonder
guess
how it works on the back end. Because when they're digital, now that he's digital, um, yeah. But prior to that, makes you wonder because he pretty much has like what, like 30 seconds or something like that, where he's in the
Shadowverse.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Working through it, I'm pretty sure it's frame jacking where he perceives things quicker.
Mm-hmm. Right. Um, yeah, yeah. So the one thing that worked for me with this story, back to kind of Grimjack's class, is they do talk about how the Overminds kind of do some data profiling to build the NPC to kind of help you transition and your own personal guide into the world,
Mm-hmm.
which makes you think about Cutter and Otto and how they got paired up with their main characters. Um, but like the progression of his class comes very naturally, and it kind of makes you wonder about the possibilities if it's a little
So
bit more freestanding on the way they can build their class.
the when he what book one back up
Mm-hmm.
Grimjack creating his character, he was looking through the different races and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and he was talking through like, hey, I normally play a paladin or a healer because he's a medic, and then he's like, oh, but maybe I'll play an assassin for solo
Right.
play, and maybe I'll do this, and like he basically became that. It was pretty close, and then I think, yeah, because he's got the stealth like an assassin, and
Mm-hmm.
then he doesn't have healing per se, but he has absorption or crowd control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I found a reference on the litRPG subreddit, and there's pretty much Dawn Elves, Merc Elves, Dwarven, Winged Humanoids, Romanesque humans, Germanic barbarian humans, and orc-like humanoids. And I'm not going to attempt to go through the actual in-game names, um, but they stay pretty mainstream fantasy race esque. Um, and gosh, like the potential for classes is just unreal. And looking at the way some of these guys can build them, um, yeah, rogue mage wielding a warhammer
Yeah,
hybrid.
he is everything and nothing
Yeah,
simultaneously
yeah.
because he has rogue abilities, but then he also has, mage abilities, but then he also has a pet, but then, yeah.
It depends how far down the rabbit hole
Mm,
you want to go, but it kind of
But you see that he's, even with being a jack of all trades, he's not always
uh,
successful
uh,
because he does find his metaphorical bacon in the fire time and time again.
would that make
Granted,
him
it typically,
a grim jack of all trades?
yeah,
Since
that's the only reason he got away with it because his name is Jack.
where's your
Um,
sounders? Um,
yeah, I'm not quite prepared today.
all good. It, but how much of it is like the free will bit, and how much of it was the Overmind's kind of tailoring stuff, right? Because
Oh
Cutter
God,
helped
yeah.
train him
There are
on the stealth
several
bit.
moments where it's literally like, you get the rogue stuff happening, and then Cutter's like, "Oh, well, I got to take care of this, but this is your show. Will you do it?" And they pause, or kind of like in book one, and it's clearly obvious in the audio version when
Yeah,
we're in the oh uh, world map doesn't show dungeon place, and he before he meets with Abby and he sees the tree, he's talking to the tree and he's like, "Oh, I've put up this barrier so that I don't turn into," and it like switches voices, and it says the little name of what he's going to turn into, and then it switches back to the tree's voice, and it's
it's
kind of
well
just,
done. Like it's I makes you wonder how much of it is strategically done to help pull you out of the moment, because like a big part of it is Grimjack coping with this being the new reality, right? Like the
yeah,
NPCs
yeah,
are
so it's
so
pretty
lifelike.
immersive.
Yeah, like what's the difference between the NPCs where Overmind data profiling them and an upload or a replicant or whatever terminology you want to use of a human? Like they're both strings of code at this point, and it's their new world. Like we got to watch the asteroid on their wall-mounted TV in this new world and in the castle. Um, but yeah, like the moment you were talking about with Cutter, where they were going to go after Georgie, like here you forget for a moment that it's an NPC because of how close they are, the moments they share, and then he goes into a very traditional quest giving monologue of like, will you help out, sort of a deal, or like, and
Yeah.
then the narration spot on, makes you feel like you're back there playing an MMO.
Yep.
But coming around to book two in all its goodness, he grinds out some ore, forms a faction, gets a freaking Drake that is over his level, um,
And
dances with the
so I
Spider
guess
Queen.
on that point there, that's one thing that I see a whole beep of a lot of potential is it kind of like when Forge gets in his face and he's like, "Hey, no cutting," and you can't really tell someone's level,
Mm-hmm.
and it's application of power where we run
One
into
of
the
your favorite
Drake and he
quotes.
he couldn't have done it by himself, but because of being prepared and the other things going on, he ends up, being successful and taming something or not being restricted. So this is one of the forward backwards things. Like I enjoy stats and being able to see and follow progression,
Mm-hmm.
but without having that, and I think there's only like 7 tiers in any one ability or whatever. Without having that, it allows for a lot more versatility and doing other things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just thinking through this book and everything that happened, everything leading up to that final battle, the Spider Queens, um, pesky
Yeah,
little fly won't get away third time.
there is so much more there.
Yeah, tell us a bit
Yeah.
about it.
Well, it's not the first book that has done the Spider Riders. It's one of our running jokes that it's not a lit RPG until you have giant spiders. And yeah,
Dungeon
so
Lord, Ascend Online, the Land have giant spiders?
yeah, it's later and it's one that they're just clearing them out, but we get a close call when we're taking Crom out.
Though
Anyway,
thinking about it, almost every MMO I've played, I think there's some giant spiders.
yeah, it's kind of the same thing for like fantasy. There's elf, dwarf, you know,
Giant spider.
it's a thing. Everybody has to have giant spiders.
Even goes back
Um,
to Lord of the Rings. Sorry for spoilers there, but there's a scene with a giant spider.
yep,
Um,
yep.
yeah, yeah. Original Tolkien himself. Um, gosh, like we just need to commit to a writing project. Where we'll do a lit RPG with all the tropiest tropes we can, just to check the box. I'm going to start working on that list now.
Yeah,
Giant
the other
spiders,
one,
check.
old guy.
Old guy, witty old guy,
Yep.
check.
I think my
Me,
favorite line from him is, "Oh, I'm old and we need less sleep. Everybody knows it."
yes, yes. Um, yeah. What did you think about choosing of the faction skills and how they reasoned through it there? Because there
So
was like three
that was
different
another
tech
one of
trees,
those
right?
like untraditional ways of looking at things, and I really enjoyed the D&D reference where he was asking Abby like, "Hey, if you rolled someone without any constitution, you wouldn't roll a melee oriented heavy hitter." And so that's why we're going the crafting route. And so far, like, we have found some pretty good loot. A lot of it was in the, cheating, not cheating dungeon, and that's primarily what we're still utilizing. Um, but the potential to kind of modify, as we see for the cannons with the Russian. Uh, White Thatch. I like that the Spiderling seems to have a personality themselves, but defer to the Queen. Yeah, and that's where like it's sentient, but at the same time it sticks to the base nature of a queen or like a hive. Always go crafting tree. Yeah, that it really depends on the game because some of them I'm all about it, and others it yeah, there are some crafting systems that I thoroughly enjoy, and then there are some that no matter what you do, you're never going to catch up. And it's one of those like after you've maxed out and you're just looking for some extra money, you start like disenchanting stuff and playing with it. So yeah, I don't know. It's variable.
I agree with White Thatch though. At least when you're thinking of like strategy games, like this one is outlined as, where it's faction versus faction. When it comes to technology tree, like taking care of your crafters and your tech and stuff is the long game. The guys that can Zerg tend to do well real quick. Just sending out the mass number of troops, et cetera, et cetera. But when you can start upgrading your stuff, get yourself some crazy cannons, you can do some damage. Um, what was the point before that? We talked
We
about
were talking about Spider Queens.
Oh,
We
the comment from or the sentience. I remember what I was going to kind of muse about is at one point Grimjack was talking about how the mobs seem to kind of level up with him. So it seems like the world slowly scales
or
along.
it's zoning for you kind of
Hmm.
deal.
Which makes me wonder, like they have this alliance now with the spiders, and the spiders will have the opportunity to quote unquote get stronger. But I wonder if they will overall kind of just naturally rank up as well to where like the spider can get stronger and stronger, or
I
how
would
that would all work.
say yes, but I would also say subject to terms and conditions. No. For example, in book one, with the dungeon that we go into, there's sentient modding or whatever hacking where they made a lot of things really weak, but then it was a balance overall where the end boss was way stronger. So eh, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be progression, but then it's going to be diluted by
Hmm.
number of participants,
Okay,
if that makes sense. Because the
sure.
queen is honestly the big baddie at the end, but spiders hatch and they zerg, but
Right,
then
right.
we're a new faction and we've got some stronger people who have leveled, but then we're adding more people, but then they're not really leveling based, they're more crafting oriented. So yeah,
I'm up through
I don't
book
know.
3, and we get to see more. Don't want to do spoilers, but I really enjoy how the world is scaling and things are progressing and starting to develop. Um, and I'm really excited and hope we get to see more full scale combat. That's something that's really, I'm thinking of the different lit RPG books that we follow. We don't really get to see a whole lot of that. Like, I guess we get to see some, but it sticks primarily to more of like a 5-man party dynamic, right? As far as the combat goes. And we have some
Yeah.
larger scale stuff here towards the end. Uh,
Or real quick, in this world, it doesn't seem to be rigged or be a
rigid,
rigged crack what?
rigid,
Rigid crafting system. Yes. So that's where things were weird because before we got our Russian engineer, they were like, "Oh yeah, I can improve damage, I can do this, I can do that," but they can't modify it. And so, now our alchemist pretty much has a, "Hey, here's how to modify," and trial and error and doing other stuff. And that's one of the things that I love about the concepts about these lit RPGs and whatnot. And I was thinking about it since book one, when there's literally a flying race that has wings on their back. And how would that feel? And same thing, like when he gets on his, Drake, which he named after his bulldog, which I can't remember the name he named it,
devil.
but Devil. He gets that like spot in the back of his mind or like the other connection.
Hmm.
So
Flexing your virtual muscle that you just got to
yeah,
learn how to
yeah. Well,
use.
and that's one of those things too where
Like
I'm
they
going to be
did some
honest,
new
there are
skill
times
learning.
where I need more hands. So,
This is true. This is
yeah.
true. Um, yeah, yeah. Comments
Or
and
I need
things, but
to,
we're going to keep this PG for everybody, or at least PG-13, and not go down that rabbit hole. Um, but anyway, one of the things on the rigid crafting system comment and like all the potential there that my mind went to is there's other games where don't want to do too many spoilers that part of being in the AI system or in the game is to harvest new ideas and to develop new
or
things
yeah, the machine learning and how they can only
or helping.
receive or create what they already have. So they need that wild card element. Kind
Well,
of like
we
Sophia's like, "Oh, yeah, I like what you're doing. That's exactly what I expected from some wild humans."
Yeah, but for example, we have the Russian alchemist who's a weapons engineer, and he's able to create some of these like really interesting things. But I think we talked about it in the last stream where it's like, okay, a good chunk of the world population has uploaded to this game, and there's people outside taking care of the servers, and the ultra elite are all in bunkers, like writing this stuff out. But why keep the lights on? After everyone uploads, why keep it going? Besides, the owner of the company himself is in there and probably doesn't want to die. Um, it could be for humanity, what's left of it, to still utilize the mental resources and capabilities of people, and you know to kind of help solve other problems.
So another random sidestep along the way. Sorry about you. Come join me. Life
Let's go on a trip.
Reset
Yes.
does a funky crafting system where essentially they take individuals who are the top of their field, be it whatever, and it gives them intense equations and problems that they've got to work through and solve. And then it takes that information and sells it on the outside. So, yeah, I don't think it's quite going that direction. But yeah, it's a forward backwards thing because the whole like Meyer Briggs example where they profile them, and if you play something out of your tolerance, um, then bad stuff would happen. As well as we're seeing a lot of the things that weren't finished or fine tuned for the death. And reliving all these different scenes and your gruesome deaths up to that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So many more questions. Really looking forward to getting into some of the side series because you've read Firebrand. I haven't. No spoilers, but I'm really hoping to see kind of a bit more of Abby's life pre destruction, just kind of like what all went into behind the scenes of creating this game,
It's pretty
and
brief. It's kind of like
same
number
as
one
his.
for this, but it's a different view. So, like, as select things are happening, instead of being immersed and instead of being like, oh, wow, or what, she's just like, nope, this is how it goes. I know what that looks like. Here we go. So,
Here we go.
yep.
Yeah. What do you think? What'd you think of that ending battle when he finally met up with the guy that he stole from?
Oh,
Um,
Carrera something.
yeah,
I thought it was well done. Makes sense for the bait and switch, or look over here while I do this other thing, and it's a
mm-hmm.
fairly unique win condition. And it didn't really go into details, but in
Get and
other
hold the keep.
games, yeah, there are other benefits to demolishing everything. And then sometimes there's benefits to, hey, now this is your home,
It's like a
you
king of
wouldn't
the
break
hill
down your
type
own walls. Yeah.
methodology.
And then the thing that was exciting yet weird, don't know how I feel, is yeah, the main evil villain monologue is a direct counter to our guy. So that was unique and just glimpsing the surface of possibilities. Um, yeah. I
It's
grew. Forge is growing on me,
yeah.
and
The one he runs
man,
into when he's trying to cut the line and everything.
yeah, and he comes
Did
back and he's trying to help him.
first time through, are you like, this guy's going to come back around? Like,
Or
there's a reason
I
why we're
thought
paying
we
attention to
were
you.
adding him to our party, but so much of our party is being delegated.
Yeah,
Like we have a moment where Cutter's off doing his own thing, training the other rogues. We've got,
right.
Abby pops in, pops out, doing her own stuff. Forge is just getting entered into the fold.
Yeah. Um, what would we say it was? Chimera's guy, the one they stole from. He
Oh,
just seemed
Carrera,
Carrera. He just
I
seems so
think.
overpowered, which kind of makes
I
you wonder.
but he is still with the people who have the 30 other faction places.
This is
We
true,
didn't
and the
stay
Emperor,
there and grind and power level and
right?
exploit because we were afraid of getting our goose cooked or, our bacon being done or, stealing and then not wanting to hang around.
I'm getting hungry.
Meanwhile, they have
Bacon wrapped
way
duck,
more
goose.
of these areas, and there's no reason he couldn't have been power leveled and all this extra. Um,
Even though
yeah,
he
I
lost
can't say
his
that.
grind, that Grimjack and them. I guess I forgot that too. Like Grimjack and Abby and
That's only
Cutter
one of
did
like
get,
25. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so it makes sense
And
why.
they didn't even like hang out because things respawn and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was
True.
not surprised that he was a little overpowered. I was expecting him to
And he's like a direct counter to Grimjack, right?
yeah. Yep.
That's part of the charm, I think, of this series is they're not the White Knights, right? Like they're the guys that lurk in the
It
shadows, that
plays
are in the
both
swamps.
sides
Well,
because
that's the beauty of
Sophia
storytelling,
is
though,
the
right?
overmind of what is it? It's not
She
chaos. It's to organize. Other people
she's the
create.
quest system, right?
Eh, she's supposed to bring order. I can't remember it exactly, but other people create chaos or create mobs or things, and then one of the things is she creates quests so that people go out and take care of them and the balance. Yeah.
Yeah. White Thatch, but if they can power level him that fast, why did they need all the hidden dungeons?
Or they needed the hidden dungeons because they didn't want just anybody get to them. And it
And
was
the
a fine
faction one,
balance
right?
of yeah, and they needed to put the faction seal at the end. After losing it, he just talked to someone else, and he still gets appointed the leader of whatever anyway.
Yeah. I wonder if that hidden dungeon though really respawned with the way they articulated it. At least not the loot. But he might have
I
gotten power leveled by the rest of the other faction guys, right?
yeah,
Um,
because the other people had their own thing. So after they found out his got taken, they just
he
went
could
and
have
he just
went
went with
and
another party. Rotated out an NPC or whatever.
part of the overall Empire versus Rebels, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Um,
There was definitely opportunity that he could have been power leveled, and we kind of get to see that with Grimjack, where he moves through pretty quick, but definitely not nearly as quick as while he was in the midst and in the dungeon.
hmm yeah.
But the downside to power leveling that way is, back to the whole crafting thing. Like, unless you're taking more and more and bigger risks, you're not getting better gear and you're not able to progress and advance and, find the loot.
hmm Sorry, I was checking the notes on Sophia and the different gods.
Right.
Um, one of seven overminds. Um,
Yeah, I remember getting a chuckle because there was like, she's the one to bring balance. Her opposition right now is the one to bring chaos. There was
hmm
one for like the beasts or the beastkin. There was one for time. There was one for space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The quote here is, "We are gravity, time, space. We are the laws of nature. We are life and death, order and chaos. And most of our vast power is bound in maintaining this creation. Yet how could we be unaware?" So they're talking about
Oh, yeah.
being
You're not
sentient.
supposed to be sentient. Oh,
Hmm.
well, I'll tell all my brothers and sisters to go
So
back to
yeah,
sleep.
each overmind is responsible for different things. Most of my kin are content with doing their work and remaining neutral in affairs of your kind. Um, Adiculus, the architect, busies himself with buildings and
Oh, yeah,
cities.
the building.
Gaia watches over trees and forests,
Yep,
monitors
we
the
got his
oceans,
seal of approval.
administers the turning of the seasons. Kronos governs time and space from on high, while Kurnus slops around in the muck with beasts of the forest. Most, however, is not all. Dramatic pause. My sister Enyo is one such overmind. She aligned herself with a group of travelers who intend to subject all of Elgard. Da 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 da. Um. So Enyo is the overmind of Discord, and it is her job to manufacture conflict so that there will always be new content for players to enjoy. She spawns dungeons and creates monsters. So that's something to keep in mind as we start allying with monsters. Would you consider giant spiders monsters?
Well, and that's a funky thing because then there's another Overmind that deals with the beastkin and the whatnot, and I guess it's no, I wouldn't consider a spider. I guess depending on which game you're playing, a
She
beast.
is discord, not death. She seeks chaos, violence, and mayhem, not destruction. Our brother Thanatos, ruler over Rog, and his infernal forces, is the other overmind actively at work in the world. He seeks destruction. Um,
So White Thatch says seems kind of redundant when humans are involved, and that is one thing this book does differently. In several other books, humans are designed or perceived as chaos, and we are.
I was about to say, do you
So,
disagree?
no, it's just we also don't have the power to manufacture dungeons. So,
Says
yeah,
you. Dungeons of the mind. Come
yeah.
on, come on.
So,
You didn't do some 2D side scrolling or whatever while riding on the bus in the mornings. You know, having your little character run along in the dungeon of life when we
yeah,
should have been
yeah,
paying
yeah.
attention at a
As well as my own dialogue, inner dialogue, or Jiminy Cricket, I think it's what. Anyway,
muse.
and theme
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
Yeah.
The little voices of the people that sit on your shoulders and talk to you.
I need bigger shoulders then.
Too many voices, not enough shoulders. Uh, get your geek on my sleeve t-shirt now with that quote.
Yeah, we need to step up our game with all that.
uh,
Ba ba ba.
uh,
Yeah, when we can upload our minds, I'm going dungeon
yes,
or dungeon core.
yes.
That's another like great subgenre that has I have I need to do more research. There may be that amazing book out there that I just haven't found. If you find it, let me know.
We're always
The
looking for good
current one
books.
that I thoroughly enjoy is the Divine Dungeon series as a dungeon core. There's another one I've recently picked up due to being included in Audible, and I was not super thrilled with it. Concept was interesting, but yeah, dungeon core.
White Thatch suggests Station Core series.
That actually is the series I'm talking about.
Is it?
Yeah, so the Station Core series, we'll go high level, spoiler free, is essentially there are aliens who are passive and they are not going to fight, so they recruit people to fight on their behalf. Alien abduction, taken from your home, stuff happens. Anyway, you are now a dungeon core and you have to figure everything out. You have your AI sidekick, and it was like thoroughly enjoying concepts. And
I
the
get a
end of the
guppy?
books, yeah, but hotter. Um,
Okay.
uh,
The visual I got of Admiral Akbar in a swimsuit piece.
uh, yeah, so like the ending of every book made me want more,
Okay.
but the progression of the book, I don't know.
So there's a good question for you. Like as a reader, we're several hundred books in, or at least I am, on the Audible collection. But I find that if a concept or a story concept is interesting enough, I'll hang out and want to play more, not necessarily like so much in the story, but like other cool concepts that you could do with it. So then I keep going. And then
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
ones, I'm like all about the story, and that's why I want to
So
keep going.
I had to take it with a grain of salt. And sorry for the long side tangent. Sand tangent. Yes, I had to understand it was a dungeon core. I don't have a whole lot of experience with dungeon cores, and there were a lot of like amazing concepts, and where I ended up getting to, which I think is like 4 or 5 books deep, I it
Four or
seemed
five
like
books
that
deep.
it
Why
seemed
why
like
don't
that
you have any
was the
spoiler-free
origin.
reviews of this? I want to know more. How do I
This
find
is
out
true.
more, Peter?
Tune in next time.
For another
Yeah,
spoiler-free review on Geek on My Sleeve.
yeah. So yeah, better than
Good old,
Guppy swears all the time.
yeah, yeah. Sci-fi Dungeon Core, says White Thatch. Is that another book series?
Or I would say this one, Station
Oh,
Core, is a
Station
sci-fi
Core.
dungeon core because it deals with
Mm,
alien space travel,
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. You have my interest. You have my interest.
nuclear reactors,
Yeah.
humans gaining powers.
So does that make Divine Dungeon a dungeon core or a lit RPG?
It is back to the question of multiple perspectives, because on one hand, our main character's perspective is the dungeon core. On the other hand, our
No,
main
no spoilers.
perspective is Mountaindale, or the guy on the mountain.
Yes, yes. And I want to ask more questions, but we won't.
Anyway,
We won't.
back to
Viridian Gate Online, the Crimson Alliance, Book 2 of the Viridian Gate Online series. So much fun. James A. Hunter, aka J.A. Hunter, aka um, VGO Daddy. Thank you. Thank you. Um, was looking online at some of his other series, and I'm definitely interested in checking some of those guys out. Uh,
yeah. There's a button somewhere, I swear.
there's lots of buttons. We like to push them.
Yeah, yeah, that's accurate. White that it's robots, resourcing, gathering, and
Mm.
magic.
See, like just the
Or well,
concept
that's where I
alone
kept
in
thinking more
Station,
of StarCraft.
yeah, yeah, kind of got a StarCraft feel.
And then where I'm at, there was a big twist. There's a lot of points that I love.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Yep,
We
yep.
could talk about spoilers for VGO, White Thatch. We need to get more good series from you, including Oh man, we have the whole other Divine Dungeon series that we got to get through.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Um, yeah. So that's where the author actually came out with a reading order, and I am going to attempt to abide by it. Yes, side quests. And that's one of those like when you're watching animes and then they make a live action adaptation and then they make movies in the middle of, and you're like, where do you fit? And that's one thing I'm going to be honest for people who create books that go into libraries that are indexed to be, so descript and all that. Like, why
Index.
can't, why
What's that?
can't I get a number?
What?
Like, be sequential. No, it's okay. I
Uh,
spend a lot of time looking up where this book is in what series.
yes, yes. And just have fun and get lost in the world.
Though
Um,
nowadays they're pretty good at, and here's a spoiler from our next book.
or just give you the first couple for free, and then you're addicted and you start buying up all the side series and quests and things. Um, of our characters in book two, any big MVPs that jump out at you?
Mm,
We haven't done that question in a while. Cutter comes through for us on multiple occasions, but he's still very much a background guy.
I was gonna say it really depends because if you're talking like wouldn't have even got off the ground, Abby. If you're talking pulling our bacon out of the fire, the Russian dude. If you're talking, but wait, I'm sure there's more. Giant Spider Queen in human form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, the Russian. Um, he got us the cannons.
He did pull through, which made it all possible for the sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly how Cutter put it, right? We're going to pull a sleight of hand and make this all happen. So yeah, we're definitely going to keep playing in this space, checking out the series. It's always hard to do these books justice in an hour or so of geeking out on it. But definitely looking forward to getting current in the series and having more fun there and checking out more of the books from Shadow Alley Press, James A. Hunter's publishing company. Um, Gosh, I forget, Pete. What are we doing next week?
Buttons. Yeah. And yeah. Next week, so He Who Fights with Monsters by Shirtaloon. Book 1 we have done. Book 1
Yes.
is out on Audible. Book 2 here is not on Audible yet, so it'll be all new glorious content for us. Thoroughly enjoy the series, or well, the first one so far. Yeah, I'm excited. His first book was beefy and glorious and something I could really
Yes.
sink my teeth into.
Yes.
He did actually pop up in our stream saying that the ending was, a little rushed. And if you can nail the second one, I'll forgive you.
Uh, he, uh, we assume it's a he,
Or,
being the
sorry,
pen name,
yeah.
but, yeah, actually caught it on the replay because he's from Australia, but it's actually, originally, what do they call it? Like a web comic, or not a web comic.
Or, yeah,
He publishes a chapter a week on his Patreon. Um, but yeah, just the pacing, so much good stuff from this book. Very much for me feels kind of like anime in a lot of ways, where just kind of the pacing of it all, episode after episode after episode, um, in all its glory and goodness, and the fact
yeah.
that we get the second book so quickly after the first one, because the first one I think was only a couple months ago, because we covered it shortly after it came out. Um,
So the ending of book one is kind of like the Golden Compass,
we don't
but
want to do
not
too many
really.
spoilers, but yes.
Okay, that's
Yes. In case our
I'm
friends want to read
excited.
book one before doing book two, another lit RPG series.
Or
Got
well, okay. So if I had to say summary free of book one,
please.
I I would say I got transported to another world, and all I got was this shirt. Um, the main guy feels very much like Lelouch from Code Geass, where he's always like 5 steps ahead,
Hmm.
but at the same time, he is very much running around with his pants on fire. Um, Things get thrown at him, and it's interesting to see how the culture difference between the fantasy realm he gets stuck in and all the extra knowledge he has.
Yes.
The thing that was most exciting was the kit or the abilities. We normally don't follow a warlock esque, and he is
Hmm.
very
Warlock-esque.
dot damage or damage over time oriented.
Yes.
And it's a thoroughly enjoyable, has a lot of unique elements that I need more of.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of fun. Comes out in 2 days. Book two, you guys got time to listen to book one. Same time, same place. Geek on My Sleeve channel, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, check out our social media. We're doing a lot better this month on getting the Geek Outs up in advance, though there might be a couple pop-up ones in between. We're aiming to get the occasional second stream in a week to help get through the backlog of some of the series we really want to talk about and get current with.
Yeah.
Um, but as always, catch us on Discord. It was great seeing a handful of friendly faces during the live stream, and as always, we'll catch you guys online. Um, through our different social medias and in the comments section. So, did I miss anything, Pete?
Mm, how did the mic sound? I didn't do a whole lot to it. Curious
Oh, you
if the
running with
mic.
the new one?
Yeah, it's going through. Or so I don't know if I have it set up.
It
So
sounds
this
it's,
is the original one, and I have a bit of compression on it and extra stuff.
okay.
And then this is the new one, which all I did was add a noise suppression because it is like super sensitive. But then this guy, I've added noise suppression, noise gate, a little bit of EQ for high end, low end, as well as a compressor just to kind of keep it in a good range. So yeah, I probably didn't need a new one. Things happened, and I have it. So yeah,
Yes.
gonna be playing with it more.
Yeah. Sounds good.
New one is a little better. Yeah, I too many things to learn. I didn't notice how bad my compression was on the original mic until I listened to myself on this mic, and I was like, "What is going on over here?"
You wouldn't have it
Yep,
any other way. Don't lie. You like learning new things.
I do, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Looking
Okay,
forward to geeking out with you guys next week.
my
Bye.